So it sounds like through this experience, it's what helped birth the advocate in you, because
Yes.
you realized that you were ill-equipped and this individual was ill-equipped.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said earlier, how many more Daniels in Atlanta that are like this,
Uh-huh.
and how many more people back home in Orlando
Yeah.
to subscribe to this,
Yeah.
which is why it seems like, the shelter you were working at, you wanted to go back and be like, hey, health department, come over here and talk
Uh-huh.
to these
Uh-huh.
people.
Uh-huh.
Let me give my community knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
So talk to me about the birth of the advocacy when it comes to
Yeah.
Daniel.
I think I've always been a person where I will conceptualize an idea and I stay fully committed to it, even if it's sometimes like folks aren't tapped in or tuned into it, or don't believe in it. And so when I moved back to Orlando, I kind of put on pause like this dream about being like a choral education teacher, an African American studies teacher, and kind of was like, okay, I think there's something here. I didn't even know it was called advocacy or activism. I just kind of was like, I had did some really cool stuff at the shelter that I was at with bringing the health department in. Had did that actually ended up expanding to where they started their TB, I guess, department came in, and that was interesting because basically the shelter that I was the program manager at, I don't know if this is the correct term that, like surveillance at the health department would use, but it was a hot spot. It had a very high positivity rate, not only for HIV, for STIs in general, and TB. And so I got to do some really cool things there, and they were so, like, when they found out that I was leaving, they were kind of like, oh gosh, like, we're really gonna miss you because you've really kind of helped get so many people by doing what you've done into care. And they were able to, reach so many different folks that they would never have been able to reach. So I was kind of like, okay, I want to do that work, kind of similar. And so I came back and started working for just I would say a broader community-based organization in Longwood that didn't have too much HIV programming, but had some HIV programming, and I essentially just started building out the programming at that organization. So prevention, and then on the care side, so then there Ryan White, Part A, Part B, being able just to kind of like provide services both to people who were living with HIV and people who were HIV negative. And that was really rewarding and so formulative because, and I have to give thanks to, her name is Karen Yeager, who was the executive director of that organization called Place of Comfort Incorporated. She saw something in me. And I remember her distinctly pulling me into her office one day and being like, this is going to sound crazy, but I see something in you that you probably don't even see in yourself. You are going to be a force to be reckoned with. And I'm going to show you how to be that force.
Yes.
And this woman trained me on everything HIV. How to read data, how to collect data, how to write grants, how to do evaluation, how to build framework tools, you name it. And gave me such range in my role to think creatively and innovative. And not only her, but just the staff, because it was a small organization, just poured into me. And so those were very formative years where I learned how to talk the language, how to, go in from, and I still have that, but, that activism where it's kind of like, we got a problem. This is the problem. How to take that, harness it, but be like, we have a problem because the data here, this, and so that kind of allowed me to blossom. And then that organization got absorbed by a larger organization. And in that organization, I had a lot more of a role in prevention, specifically with what is called early intervention services. So that's kind of more on the preventative side. It's kind of, making sure that our programming and services is reaching communities that really need it to help keep those individuals negative. But for those individuals who are newly diagnosed, who have fallen out of care, how do we help them get into care? And one of the biggest things that I try to explain to folks, especially medical providers, getting re-engaged in care, getting in care, it has to be person-centered, very unique to that individual. And even more when we talk about Black folk, because let's keep it real. Historically, there's been hesitancy to go to a medical provider. I grew up in a household that was built on homeopathic remedies, holistic, right? And I think there are many people who can relate to that, right? Yeah. So, going into a structured medical environment where I think people fail to realize it's a lifestyle change. For someone like myself who, the only thing I had to do for the most part was, take Flintstone multivitamins to now having to take a pill every day.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you noticed when I talked a little bit earlier, what motivated me to take the pill every day was my own personal conviction. It had nothing to do with what my medical provider was saying. I had made in my mind that I wanted to live. And so I think with early intervention services, it really allowed me to expand that muscle to really get the organization to understand that these services, they're not a one size fits all. We need to be really unique, very aware, very appropriate, very sensitive. In some cases, have a level of humility when we are trying to reach these different communities. And so that was a beauty I kept building. I wouldn't say I had too much hands-on capacity building experience in that, but I did have someone over at the health department by the name of Nicole Elenoff, who, just like Karen Yeager, saw something in me and was like, "You are such a rock star." And she said it just like that. And I'm just like, "Oh, okay." And Nicole just slid these opportunities for me to check out. She said, this is something you should look into. And I think by that time I had revisited, okay, I love my city. I love Orlando. I love the work that I'm doing. But I'm noticing that there's not an intentional space for people who look like me, who talk like me, who have the same lived experiences and sit at similar intersections of life like me. And, I think the reality of it is that we know things cost money. And funding in HIV is always such a hot topic because I think there's a thought that there's a lot of it. But I think you can kind of by proxy understand there ain't that much coins, right? And so I was like, but I was trying to advocate for, like, we need more spaces. We can't just lump everyone in, because the experience of a Black queer man is very different from the experience of a white queer man for so many reasons, which I could outline, right? Like there's a level of privilege that white queer men have that Black queer men like myself will never ever have, right? And so I wanted to create some type of space for my people, for us to come together. And Nicole, she was so amazing in connecting me with an opportunity that was offering some seed money, kind of almost like micro grants for like a project activation. And so that's where Bros and Convo was birthed. It was birthed because I got with some community members, some fellow Black queer men, and I'm like, I'm thinking about creating this space. And we were like, oh, the kitchen table. If you are from a Black household, the kitchen table is
where it goes down.
Yes, it is the big red table for therapy. It is where we fellowship together and we experience joy and good food, but also where we talk about like our challenges as Black folk, our heartbreaks, just things that piss us off or make us sad or make us happy. And so Bros and Convo was conceptualized as, oh, Black gay and queer men love kickbacks. Love a good, cute little scene where there's, food and, libations of some sort and conversation. And it was also so timely because this was like 2017. Pulse had happened the year before. And I think the untold story about Pulse is how it impacted the Black LGBTQ plus community, because it was one of the very few spaces that the community could come to find joy, to dance, to find happiness. But it was also one of the few spaces where there was resource sharing. And I think that's also the part that people miss about just kind of these social settings that community has, because there's, this assumption of like, oh, all it is about turn up. No. You are turning up, and then you're kind of like, oh, girl, do you know, like, I went and got prep at this place, and it was free, and I think you need to get on it, because, we on our city girl, city boy-ish right now. We need to, or this is a place where you can get care. There's resource sharing that's still happening. And so when Pulse happened a year later, it felt timely to create a space to resource share, to find joy. And so that's how Bros and Convo initially started off. I'll never forget, we got $7,500 and I was so proud of it. First grant I had kind of just written for what I wanted, right?
That's a lot of money to start your own project.
Yeah. I'm not about to minimize. It was a cute little coin.
Yeah.
And I had it allocated for everything because what I wanted to show that had never been shown before in Orlando was a unapologetically, unequivocally Black run led initiative, blackity black, yes, in my Kendrick Lamar voice.
Yes.
And so I remember writing in there, the catering was going to be Black. The interior designer to put the candles and everything was going to be Black. And boy, we had a time. Yes. It was, I think, such a beautiful moment because people came together and we met at the Stafford House. Shout out to Miracle of Love.
Yes.
That has been such a amazing partner for me in my activist and advocacy journey. Angus, I remember going to Angus when just a little pro tip for folks, like when you start in this advocacy journey and you don't have your 501c3 and all of that, there needs to be someone reputable to hold that money. They're not just going to give the money to you like that, right? And so I strategically wanted it at MOL because MOL was started by a Black gay man by the name of Lowell Stafford.
Okay.
And then it was being run by Angus Bradshaw, which was a Black gay man.
Mm-hmm.
And here I come with this. So I was like, this is the perfect home. And Angus and Miracle of Love were so excited. And it was just a beautiful moment where we got together and we talked about our experiences as Black gay and queer men, what that looks like from intimacy to relationships. But then also I saw it as an opportunity to infuse a little bit of education, right? So while we're enjoying our mocktails and charcuterie, we are talking about, how do you disclose? He's looking good. He's smelling good. Mm-hmm. It might be a sneaky link. It might not be a sneaky link. You might really like him, but you're scared about how to have that conversation of disclosure. And so brought in licensed professionals to walk us through. This is what disclosing looks like. Mm-hmm. This is how you deal with this. Things are about to pop off and you want to have the conversation about condoms. This is how you do it. Things that we take for granted. We go to the doctor comes in. These are your labs. We never hold the labs. We never see them or be able to understand. And so I remember we partnered with Orlando Immunology Center. Shout out to Sam Graper, who was over there at that time, and Dr. Charlotte Page Roll, who came in and walked us through how to read labs and talked about, different research studies that individuals could access healthcare for free. Mm. And so it was really, really great. And it was supposed to be 6 months, $7,500. We Black, so we gonna stretch it as much as we can.
Of course.
But I'm not Jesus, and I cannot turn water into wine. So we creep on the 6 month, and community is like, folks are like, what's next? And I'm like, huh? What do you mean? What's next? And it was just, once again, a wake up call that this thing needed to keep going. And so we kept going and we kept building and we kept expanding. And I think for me, what has been the most rewarding thing to see has been how Bros and Convo has created space and impact for a community that felt invisible for a long time, but then how it has encouraged and made room and made space for other folks to follow through. So I think about, you've got the divas with Divas in Dialogue. Yes, you've got all these other groups, and oh God, I'm so filled with joy because I remember when we started Bros and Convo, I can be very honest, folks weren't really tapping in or tuned in from the outside. Mm-hmm. Community was into it, but I think, when you think about funding, when you think about the status quo in HIV, it's always been, a different way. And they're kind of like, here come these kids disrupting it. Like, how is that going to work? And the numbers don't lie. Yeah. The numbers don't lie. And so more folks started getting tested. More folks started getting on PrEP. We have consistently, since the beginning of Bros and Convo, had an adherence rate, whether that is to PrEP, whether that is to HIV care with our community members. We've always had an adherence rate of 80% and above. And people have been like, what are y'all doing? And I'm like, we are meeting people where they are, but we are disrupting the system. And I think part of that has been teaching community, but we also had to teach our providers as well. And some of those conversations were difficult because it's like, I get it. You got that medical degree. You are taught a certain way. But spend an extra 5 to 10 minutes with them. Actually have a real conversation with them.
Yeah.
Bring it to a human level and you will see immediately the difference. And I think that's what has been really wonderful. And it's so interesting because we just started with this love and this heart for community, and 6 months happened, then a year. The next thing you know, we won a GLAAD award, and it was like, okay, this is cute. And it's built ever since. And I'm appreciative of awards, right? And in the sense of like, it's just a reminder of kind of like collectively as a team, we're doing the right thing. But I think for me, like I said, the most rewarding thing has been creating something that's been a ripple effect, creating a door, opening it, and being like, okay, y'all walk through this and create other doors as well, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that's been the beauty of seeing that Bros in Combo has kind of in a way created and made space for so many other initiatives to be like, they did it, we can do it too. And no shade, them doing it better than us, which I love, because that's what it's supposed to be. Yeah. That's what it's supposed to be about. I think that's what brings me the biggest joy, seeing, Mulan and Marlo just soar and get people to pay attention to the experiences and the needs of trans women across a whole spectrum. I mean, my God, like, who would have thought that would be a possibility? And so, yeah, my heart is so full, being able to be part of that history and part of Central Florida's HIV legacy when it comes to HIV.